The gunshot echoed across the dusty plains of Wyoming Territory in 1878, causing Olivia Anderson to duck instinctively behind the overturned wagon that had been her home for the past 3 weeks. The bullet splintered wood mere inches from her face, sending sharp fragments flying through the air like angry hornets. This wasn't how she'd imagined her new life in the West would begin, but then again, nothing had gone according to plan since she'd left Boston. "Stay down, miss," shouted a deep voice from somewhere to her right. Olivia pressed her body against the hard, packed earth, the smell of dirt and gunpowder filling her nostrils. Her heart hammered against her ribs as another shot rang out, followed by the sound of pounding hooves. She dared to lift her head just enough to see a man on horseback racing toward her position, firing his revolver at 3 riders who were retreating toward the horizon. The lone rider pulled his horse to a stop near her wagon and dismounted in one fluid motion. His movements were precise, efficient like a man who had spent his entire life in the saddle. As he approached, Olivia took in his appearance, tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of a summer storm. His dark hair fell in waves beneath a well-worn hat, and several days' worth of stubble shadowed his jaw. "Are you hurt?" he asked, kneeling beside her. "No," Olivia managed, her voice shakier than she would have liked. "They took everything of value, but I'm unharmed." He nodded once, his expression grave. "Those were Barton's men. They've been raiding travelers along this route for months now." He extended a hand to help her up. "I'm Adam Prescott." "Olivia Anderson," she replied, accepting his assistance. His hand was calloused but gentle, and she couldn't help but notice how easily he pulled her to her feet, as if she weighed nothing at all. "You're a long way from anywhere, Miss Anderson," Adam observed, surveying the damage to her wagon. One wheel was completely shattered, and most of her supplies were either stolen or scattered across the prairie. "What brings you to Wyoming Territory?" Olivia brushed the dust from her skirts, trying to regain some semblance of dignity. "I came to teach. There's a position waiting for me in Silver Creek." Adam's eyebrows rose slightly. "Silver Creek's still 30 miles west of here. You planning to walk?" "If necessary," she replied, lifting her chin defiantly. A hint of a smile touched his lips. "That won't be necessary. I can take you there." Olivia hesitated. Her father had warned her about the dangers of the frontier, particularly for a woman alone, but what choice did she have? Her wagon was destroyed, her supplies gone, and the vast emptiness of the Wyoming Territory stretched out around her like an ocean. "Why would you help me?" she asked, caution evident in her voice. Adam shrugged. "Because it's the right thing to do, and because Silver Creek happens to be where I'm headed anyway." There was something in his eyes, a flicker of something deeper than mere kindness that made Olivia believe him. She nodded her agreement, and within the hour they had salvaged what little remained of her belongings and loaded them onto his horse. "It'll be a tight fit," Adam said, gesturing to the saddle. "But Thunder here can handle both of us until we reach my camp. I've got an extra horse there." Olivia eyed the large stallion warily. "I've never ridden before." "Then today's your lucky day," Adam replied, the corner of his mouth quirking upward. "You'll ride in front. That way I can make sure you don't fall off." Before she could protest, he lifted her onto the saddle with ease, then swung up behind her. His chest pressed against her back, and his arms encircled her as he took the reins. The intimacy of their position made her cheeks flush, but there was also an unexpected feeling of security in his embrace. As they rode away from the wreckage of her wagon, Olivia couldn't help but feel that her life had just taken another unexpected turn. Whether it was for better or worse remained to be seen. Adam's camp was situated in a small grove of cottonwoods beside a narrow creek. It was simple but well organized: a small tent, a stone-ringed fire pit, and 2 horses grazing nearby. Olivia noticed that despite its minimalism, there was a certain care to how everything was arranged, almost as if he'd been living on the trail for a long time. "You're not just passing through, are you?" she asked as he helped her dismount. Adam's expression turned guarded. What makes you say that, your camp? It looks permanent, at least as permanent as a camp can be. He busied himself with unsaddling Thunder. Been tracking Barton's gang for nearly 2 months now. They've been terrorizing settlers and travelers across 3 territories. You're a lawman, then? Adam hesitated before answering. Used to be. Now I'm just a man with a purpose. There was something in his tone that discouraged further questions, so Olivia changed the subject. How long until we reach Silver Creek? We'll set out at first light. Should make it by tomorrow evening if the weather holds. He glanced at the darkening sky. I'll get a fire going. You must be hungry. As it turned out, Adam was a surprisingly good cook. The rabbit stew he prepared over the campfire was simple but flavorful, and Olivia found herself relaxing as the night deepened around them. The vast canopy of stars overhead was unlike anything she'd ever seen in Boston, and the distant howl of coyotes was both thrilling and unsettling. Why teaching? Adam asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence that had fallen between them. Olivia looked up from her bowl. Pardon. Why did you choose to come all the way out here to teach? There must be plenty of schools back east. She considered her answer carefully. I wanted to go somewhere I was needed, somewhere I could make a difference. She paused, then added more quietly, and perhaps somewhere I could start over. Adam nodded as if her answer confirmed something he'd suspected. Running from something or toward something? Both, I suppose, Olivia admitted, surprised by her own candor with this near stranger. My father arranged a marriage for me to a business associate twice my age. I refused, and he. She touched her cheek involuntarily, where the bruise had long since faded but the memory remained. He made it clear I was no longer welcome in his home. Adam's jaw tightened, and something dangerous flashed in his eyes. No man has the right to force a woman's hand that way. His voice was low, controlled, but with an undercurrent of anger that wasn't directed at her. What about you? Olivia asked. What's your story, Adam Prescott? He stared into the flames for a long moment. Not much to tell. I was a marshal in Colorado Territory for 8 years. Hung up my badge after. He trailed off, his expression distant. After I lost someone. Olivia sensed there was much more to the story, but she didn't press. Everyone had their secrets, their burdens to bear. She understood that better than most. I'm sorry, she said simply. Adam nodded once in acknowledgement, then stood. You should get some rest. I'll take the tent, you take my bedroll by the fire. I couldn't possibly, I insist, he said firmly. I'll be more comfortable knowing you're warm and safe. Before she could argue further, he retreated to tend to the horses, effectively ending the conversation. Olivia sighed and settled into his bedroll, which smelled of leather, pine, and something uniquely masculine that she tried not to find comforting. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her for some time. Her mind kept returning to Adam Prescott, to the sadness that seemed to live in his eyes, to the gentle way he'd treated her despite his obvious strength, to the mystery of what had made him abandon his badge to pursue outlaws on his own. There was something about him that intrigued her, something beyond his rugged good looks or his timely rescue. Eventually, the rhythmic sounds of the night, the rustling leaves, the distant creak, the occasional whinny from the horses lulled her into slumber. Her last conscious thought was that perhaps fate had a strange way of working after all. The next morning dawned clear and crisp, with a hint of autumn in the air. Olivia woke to find Adam already up, brewing coffee over a freshly built fire. He looked as if he'd been awake for hours, though she noticed the dark circles beneath his eyes suggested he hadn't slept well. Morning, he said, offering her a tin cup of strong black coffee. Hope you slept better than I did. Olivia accepted the cup gratefully. Thank you. For everything, I mean, not just the coffee. He shrugged off her gratitude. We should get moving soon. I've saddled the mare for you. She's gentle, shouldn't give you any trouble. True to his word, the chestnut mare he'd prepared for her was docile and patient as Olivia mounted with Adam's assistance. Her inexperience was obvious, but he was a patient teacher, showing her how to hold the reins and move with the horse's gait. As they rode side by side across the open prairie, Olivia found herself stealing glances at her companion. In the morning light, his features were more defined, the lines around his eyes speaking of both laughter and hardship. He rode with the easy confidence of a man who'd spent most of his life in the saddle, his body moving in perfect harmony with his horse. "You're staring," he observed without looking at her. Olivia felt her cheeks flush. "I'm sorry, I was just wondering about you." Adam's mouth curved into a small smile. "Wondering what? What makes a man give up being a marshal to hunt outlaws on his own?" His smile faded. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer, but then he spoke, his voice so low she had to lean closer to hear him. "Barton's gang raided a settlement near Denver last year. Killed 12 people, including my wife and daughter." The words were delivered with such quiet control that their impact was all the more devastating. "The territorial governor disbanded our marshal unit soon after budget cuts," they said. "Barton walked free." Olivia's hand flew to her mouth. "Adam, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have asked." He shook his head. "It's been 14 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Sarah was pregnant with our second child when they killed her." The raw pain in his voice broke something inside Olivia. Without thinking, she reached across the space between their horses and placed her hand on his arm. "And you've been tracking them ever since?" "Every day," he confirmed. "I've caught 4 of them so far. Turned them in to local law when I could, made sure they faced justice one way or another when I couldn't. And Barton himself," Adam's expression hardened. "He's next. Last I heard he was operating out of Silver Creek, that's why I'm headed there." Olivia withdrew her hand slowly. "So taking me to Silver Creek would have been my destination regardless," he finished for her. "But I won't deny that having you along has been unexpected." There was something in the way he said unexpected that made Olivia's heart beat a little faster. It wasn't just that he was handsome, though he certainly was, but there was a depth to him, an integrity that drew her in despite the walls he'd built around himself. "What will you do when you find him?" she asked quietly. Adam was silent for a long moment. "I don't know any more," he admitted finally. "For a long time, all I wanted was to put a bullet in him, but lately—" He glanced at her, then away. "Lately, I've been wondering if there might be more to life than revenge." The implications of his words hung in the air between them as they continued their journey. Olivia didn't push for more. She sensed he'd already shared more with her than he had with anyone in a very long time. As the day wore on, the terrain began to change. The flat prairie gave way to rolling hills dotted with pine and aspen. By mid-afternoon, they could see the distant outline of mountains against the horizon. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Adam said, noticing her awestruck expression. "I've never seen anything like it," Olivia admitted. "Boston has its charms, but nothing that compares to this. This land gets into your blood," he told her. "Once you've lived under these skies, nothing else ever feels quite right." They stopped to rest the horses by a small stream, taking the opportunity to refill their canteens and stretch their legs. Olivia was surprised by how comfortable she felt in Adam's company, despite having known him for barely a day. There was an ease between them that defied explanation. As she knelt by the stream, splashing cool water on her face, she caught Adam watching her, an unreadable expression in his eyes. When their gazes met, he didn't look away. "What is it?" she asked. He seemed to consider his words carefully. "You remind me of someone, your wife." Olivia guessed softly. Adam shook his head. "No, Sarah was fire and determination. You remind me of myself before." He paused. "Hopeful, believing you can change things." "And you don't believe that anymore." "I'm not sure what I believe anymore," he admitted. "Except that we should get moving if we want to reach Silver Creek before dark." They mounted up again and continued their journey in companionable silence. As the afternoon waned, Olivia found herself wondering what would happen when they reached their destination. She would begin her new life as Silver Creek schoolteacher, and Adam would pursue his quest for justice against Barton. Their paths had crossed by chance, but would soon diverge again. The thought left her with an unexpected sense of loss. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon when Adam suddenly raised his hand, signaling her to stop. His posture had changed, alert and tense, his eyes scanning the landscape ahead. "What is it?" Olivia whispered. "Riders," he replied, pointing to a cloud of dust in the distance. "Coming this way." He guided their horses off the trail and into a stand of trees, his hand moving to rest on the revolver at his hip. "Could be nothing," he said, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. "But better safe than sorry." As the riders drew closer, Adam's expression darkened. "Barton," he breathed, the name a curse on his lips. Olivia's heart began to race. "How can you tell from this distance?" The bay horse with the white blaze. "I'd know it anywhere." His voice was tight with controlled rage. "That's Barton at the lead. Looks like he's got 4 men with him." "What do we do?" she asked, trying to keep the fear from her voice. Adam turned to her, his eyes fierce. "We stay hidden, let them pass." "But this is your chance to get us both killed," he cut her off. "I'm not risking your life, Olivia." The way he said her name with such concern, such protection sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. Before she could respond, the sound of the approaching riders grew louder, and Adam placed a finger to his lips, signaling silence. From their hiding place, they watched as 5 men rode past on the trail below. The leader was a large man with a shock of red hair and a cruel set to his mouth. He was laughing about something, the sound carrying on the wind a cold, heartless sound that made Olivia's blood run cold. As they passed, one of the riders glanced in their direction. For a heart-stopping moment, Olivia thought they'd been discovered, but then the man looked away, continuing his conversation with his companions. Only when the riders had disappeared from view and the sound of hooves had faded did Adam relax his grip on his weapon. "They're headed to Silver Creek," he said grimly. "Then what do we do now?" Olivia asked. Adam's jaw was set in determination. "We follow them. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe." "No," Olivia said firmly. "I'm coming with you. This isn't your fight, Olivia, maybe not, but I'm not letting you face them alone." She met his gaze unflinchingly. "You saved my life yesterday. The least I can do is help you now." Adam studied her face for a long moment, as if seeing her properly for the first time. "You're either the bravest or the most foolish woman I've ever met." Olivia smiled despite the tension, perhaps a bit of both. A reluctant smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "All right. But you'll do exactly as I say, understand? If I tell you to run, you run. No arguments." She nodded her agreement, though in her heart, she knew she couldn't simply abandon him if danger arose. There was something between them, now a connection that had formed so quickly yet felt as solid as if it had been forged over years rather than hours. They continued toward Silver Creek at a more cautious pace, keeping to the trees where possible. As the town came into view in the valley below, the setting sun painted the buildings in shades of gold and amber. It was smaller than Olivia had expected, a single main street flanked by wooden structures, with scattered homesteads surrounding it. "There's an old hunting cabin about a mile east of town," Adam said as they surveyed the settlement from their vantage point on the hillside. "Belonged to a friend of mine. We'll leave the horses there and go into town on foot after dark." The cabin he spoke of was little more than a one-room structure with a sagging roof, but it offered shelter and concealment. After tending to the horses, Adam dug through his saddlebags and produced a small bundle wrapped in oilcloth. "Here," he said, handing it to Olivia. "Put this on." She unwrapped it to find a man's shirt, vest, and trousers. "You want me to wear men's clothing? It'll draw less attention than a woman in a dress," he explained. "We need to blend in." Olivia hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Turn around, then." Adam obliged, facing the wall while she changed. The clothes were too large for her, but with the sleeves rolled up and the trousers belted tightly, they would serve their purpose. She tucked her hair up under a hat Adam provided and cleared her throat when she was done. When he turned back to face her, something flickered in his eyes' surprise and something warmer that made her pulse quicken. "Well," she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "You make a very unconvincing boy," he said with a small smile, "but it'll have to do. Just keep your head down and stay close to me." As darkness fell, they made their way toward town on foot. The main street was alive with activity, the saloon's windows glowed with lamplight, and the sounds of piano music and raucous laughter spilled into the street. Adam led her past the busier establishments to a small, nondescript building at the edge of town. "Sheriff's office," he explained in a low voice. "Let me do the talking." The man behind the desk inside was middle-aged with a salt and pepper mustache and tired eyes. He looked up as they entered, his hand moving instinctively toward the shotgun propped against his desk. "Can I help you folks?" he asked warily. Adam stepped forward. "Sheriff, my name's Adam Prescott. I was a marshal out of Denver until last year." Recognition dawned in the sheriff's eyes. "Prescott, I heard about what happened to your family. Terrible business." Adam nodded once, his jaw tight. "I've been tracking Barton and his gang, saw them riding into town earlier today." The sheriff's expression grew troubled. "They're over at the Golden Nugget. Been there a couple of hours now, drinking and causing a ruckus." He eyed Olivia suspiciously. "Who's the boy?" "My nephew," Adam lied smoothly. "I'm teaching him the trade." The sheriff didn't look entirely convinced but didn't press the issue. "Look, Prescott, I understand your situation, but I can't have a shootout in my town. Barton's got too many men with him." "I'm not looking for a shootout," Adam assured him. "Just justice." The sheriff sighed heavily. "There's a circuit judge due in town next week. If you can help me bring Barton in alive, he'll stand trial." Adam was quiet for a moment, and Olivia could see the internal struggle playing out on his face. Finally, he nodded. "All right, what's your plan?" The sheriff explained that he had 2 deputies who could help, but they would need to be smart about how they approached Barton and his men. They decided to wait until later that night when the outlaws would be more likely to be separated and vulnerable. As they left the sheriff's office, Olivia could sense the tension radiating from Adam. She touched his arm gently. "Are you all right with this? Bringing him in alive, I mean." He stopped walking, his gaze fixed on the distant saloon where Barton was drinking. "I've dreamed of putting a bullet in him for 14 months, he admitted quietly. "But then I met you and—" He trailed off, seeming surprised by his own words. "And what?" she prompted softly. Adam turned to her, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. "And I started to remember there might be more to life than revenge." He reached out hesitantly and touched her cheek. "That there might be a future worth living for." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken emotions. Olivia found herself leaning into his touch, her heart hammering in her chest. For a brief, breathless moment, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he drew back, his expression regretful. "We should find a place to wait until the sheriff is ready." Olivia nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. "Of course." They found a quiet spot on the porch of the town's general store where they could observe the saloon without being obvious. As they waited, Olivia tried to sort through her conflicted feelings. She had known Adam Prescott for barely 2 days, yet she felt connected to him in a way she couldn't explain. Was it merely gratitude for his rescue, admiration for his courage and principles, or something deeper? "Tell me about your daughter," she said suddenly, wanting to know more about the man beside her. Adam's face softened at the mention of his child. "Emma, she was 5 when—" He paused, collecting himself. "She had Sarah's red hair and my stubbornness. Loved horses, used to beg me to take her riding every day." A ghost of a smile touched his lips at the memory. "She would have been 7 next month." "She sounds wonderful," Olivia said gently. "She was." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "You would have liked her. And she would have adored you." The simple statement touched Olivia deeply. Before she could respond, movement across the street caught their attention. Barton and 2 of his men were exiting the saloon, laughing loudly. "They're splitting up," Adam observed, his body tensing. 2 headed toward the livery, Barton and the others toward the hotel. At that moment, they saw the sheriff and his deputies moving into position. The plan was to apprehend the outlaws separately, minimizing the chance of a shootout. "Stay here," Adam told her firmly. "I mean it, Olivia. No matter what happens, stay out of sight." Before she could protest, he was gone, moving silently through the shadows toward the hotel. Olivia's heart pounded as she watched him disappear from view. Despite his instructions, she couldn't bear the thought of him facing danger alone. After a moment's hesitation, she followed, keeping to the shadows as he had done. She reached the hotel just in time to see Adam and the sheriff confronting Barton in the lobby. The outlaw's hand hovered near his gun, his face twisted in a sneer of recognition. "Well, if it ain't Marshal Prescott," Barton drawled. "Heard you'd been chassin' my shadow across 3 territories, still sore about that pretty wife of yours." Adam's voice was cold and steady. "You're under arrest, Barton, for murder, robbery, and about a dozen other charges." "The circuit judge will be here next week," Barton laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "You think I'm gonna hang for a bunch of settlers who shouldn't have been on that land in the first place?" "Your choice," the sheriff interjected. "Come quietly or add resisting arrest to your crimes." What happened next unfolded in a blur of motion. Barton reached for his gun, but Adam was faster, drawing and firing in one fluid movement. The bullet struck Barton's shoulder, causing him to drop his weapon with a howl of pain. The sheriff moved in quickly to disarm him completely. But in the chaos, no one noticed the third man who had been with Barton, a thin, wiry outlaw who had circled behind them during the confrontation. Olivia saw him raise his gun, aiming directly at Adam's back. Without thinking, she cried out, "Adam, behind you." Adam spun at her warning, but not before the outlaw had fired. The bullet grazed Adam's arm, tearing through his shirt and drawing blood. In the next instant, the sheriff's deputy had tackled the shooter to the ground. As the dust settled, Adam's eyes found Olivia where she stood in the doorway. His expression was a mixture of relief, anger, and something else she couldn't quite name. "I told you to stay hidden," he said as he approached her, clutching his wounded arm. "You're welcome," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt, "for saving your life." For a moment he looked as if he might argue further, but then his expression softened. "Thank you," he said simply. "Though I'd prefer if you'd listen to me next time." "Next time," Olivia echoed, a small smile playing at her lips. Adam's gaze held hers. "If you'll permit it." The air between them seemed charged with possibility, but the moment was interrupted as the sheriff approached. "Prescott, we've got them all in custody. Your arm needs tending." Adam nodded, not taking his eyes off Olivia. "Later," he told the sheriff. "There's something I need to do first." As the sheriff walked away, Adam reached out with his uninjured arm and gently touched Olivia's face. "I thought I'd lost everything worth living for," he said quietly. "I never expected to find a reason to start over." Olivia's heart swelled with emotion. "Is that what I am?" "A reason to start over, you could be," he replied, his voice rough with feeling. "If you wanted to be." "I'd like that very much," she whispered. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek. "I have to see this through the trial, making sure Barton faces justice. After that." "After that," she prompted. "After that, I was thinking I might settle down. Silver Creek seems like a good place. I hear they have an excellent new schoolteacher." Olivia smiled, tears of happiness threatening to spill from her eyes. "I hear she might be interested in a former marshal with a penchant for rescuing damsels in distress." For the first time since she'd met him, Adam Prescott smiled, fully a genuine smile that transformed his face and reached his eyes. "Then perhaps I should call on her properly once this business is concluded." "Perhaps you should," Olivia agreed. 1 week later, Barton and his men faced the circuit judge and were sentenced to hang for their crimes. Adam testified at the trial, his testimony ensuring that justice would be served for his family and all the others who had suffered at the outlaw's hands. The night after the sentencing, he found Olivia waiting on the porch of the small house the town had provided for their new teacher. She had been busy setting up her classroom and making preparations for the children who would soon be her students. "It's over," he told her as he approached. "They'll be transported to Cheyenne tomorrow for execution." Olivia studied his face in the fading light. "How do you feel?" Adam considered the question carefully. "Like I can finally breathe again, like I've fulfilled my promise to Sarah and Emma." He took her hands in his. "And like I'm ready to look forward instead of backward." "I'm glad," she said softly. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you," Adam said, his voice serious. "I know we haven't known each other long, but I feel like I've been waiting for you my whole life without realizing it." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "Adam." "I'm not asking for promises yet," he clarified quickly. "Just permission to court you properly, to see if what's between us could grow into something lasting." She reached up and touched his face gently. "I'd like that very much." He leaned in, his lips finding hers in a tender kiss that held the promise of many more to come. When they finally parted, Olivia rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I should go," Adam said reluctantly. "It's getting late and your reputation as the town's teacher." Olivia nodded, understanding his concern. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "And every day after if you'll have me," he promised. As he turned to leave, Olivia felt a sudden fear grip her heart, a fear born of all she had lost and all she stood to gain. "Adam," she called after him, her voice trembling slightly. He turned back, concern evident in his expression. She whispered, "Don't leave me again." Adam crossed the distance between them in 2 long strides and pulled her into his arms. "Never," he vowed, holding her close. "I'm yours, Olivia Anderson, for as long as you'll have me." In that moment, with the stars emerging in the darkening sky above them and the promise of a new beginning before them, Olivia knew that sometimes fate worked in mysterious ways. She had come to Wyoming Territory seeking independence and purpose. Instead, she had found her heart's home in the arms of a cowboy who had saved her in more ways than one. And as Adam held her, he silently thanked whatever force had brought this remarkable woman into his life when he needed her most. Together, they would build something new from the ashes of their past, something strong, something lasting, something beautiful forever.